wacky world of MultimediaJay.
Hey guys, this is... wait, wrong impression. I'm going to crash this computer. Yes! That's more like it. No impression's really going to sound very good right now for me because I don't sound very good. I caught something at work, unfortunately, or it's allergies gone through the roof and something along those lines, but yeah. Been under the weather the last few days. We also brought in some musty cube walls for my office because we got them cheap. We were a little too cheap, I guess. So I was feeling under the weather within 2 days tops. We also had the change in the weather, and with the change in the weather comes, well, sickness and whatnot. So we goofed a few things up with the Silver Bullet in that Tech Syndicate pastiche earlier, but now we are back on familiar territory. We're doing things the way I normally do things now, not ripping off someone else's style just for laughs. Now, those of you, let's see who's paying attention here. You may have noticed that the intro had not short, but slow pans like this, which I'm trying to do with the new camera, but it's not working out too well because, well, it's not the same as when a machine does it. So, here's my attempt to do the same thing with the camera. There's no see, it goes slow for a second, and then it goes too fast. Plus, it's a point and shoot, so zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out. You hear a little bit of zoom noise too, because this thing's made for, oh my goodness, let's take a picture of that thing over there, snoop, things like that. That's the way point and shoots are versus the soup can camcorders out there. So, what happened? Well, let's just say it's been a while since the last heat and humidity wave. Last night, and as part of depression about how nothing was working right, I was like, watch, I'll bet the camcorder's still not gonna work. Here's the HD camera. Let's just, it's on, and the screen isn't touching itself, so to speak. This thing had a problem with, I think, condensation underneath the, condensation between the screen and the sensor. It's a resistive screen, so you actually have to push in. I actually have to push on it, so I'm thinking that there was probably some condensation that somehow found its way in under the membrane and glitched this thing out for weeks on end. So I was stuck using the standard def version of this thing, and you're doing fake HD with everything fuzzy around the edges. But this thing is back in action. However, I still like the point and shoot because the microphone's a little better. This thing's microphone, if you remember, was just a tad tinny. Yeah, hear the difference? But here is the new device, which can finally be shown with some proper, respectable, it's a point and shoot. It's made primarily for photographers, but there's enough video on here that some people vlog with these things. Got a Mega Uber 30x optical zoom, which is actually the same as the soup can. You can go 30x and go completely out of focus. Yeah, this thing has 30x. I have the digital zoom turned off on the soup can because, well, digital zoom sucks. Blowing up pixels doesn't really do much for you unless you're really desperate to be Mr. Paparazzi or whatever. Anyways, this thing gets pretty big. It's actually bigger. It's actually bigger than its predecessor. Let's get the Fuji in here for size comparison. Let's see if we can squeeze the Fuji in. Yeah, see, the Fuji is actually smaller. We're not going to do it the size justice here, but, yeah, smaller lens versus way bigger, and we just zoom that thing in all the way, and yeah, that's it. So, it was good for its time, though. Back in the days when everything was still standard def, YouTube had very strict limits on uploads and things like that, and DV tape was actually still around, and still the main way that camcorders functioned. So, basically, the microphone in the soup can is a little on the tinny side. The microphone in the Canon is a little on the muddy side.
It's, ironically, the standard def camcorder that has the best built-in mic. All of them, however, pale in comparison to the Yeti. Whatever.
I would, however, like to find something soft to reinforce this plastic-ish type thing here, so that something like this is hard to do. I imagine that can't be good for it. I mean, the bending and twisting is bad enough for this as it is. Never mind, you know, this thing hitting the side, although it was the internal side that had the problems with touching itself, so to speak. Just glitching out and things like that. It wasn't this side, so if there is a problem with if there are mechanical issues with how this thing is designed, it's not from this thing slapping the side of itself and... Right, I believe we have a computer to fix. This again. Once more into the dinosaur, or whatever. First and foremost, it is worth noting that I am not content with this rat's nest of multicolored spaghetti, and I do want to fiddle around with potentially some hack job solutions to this case's complete lack of cable management, which is hilarious because it's a window case, so yay, it shows off your spaghetti. You know what, I suppose I'm a little more ticked that I have to mess with this stock cooler again. So, the way these stupid things work, these Intel stock coolers, is that you turn the things, and if they're parallel, they're locked. So some of these weren't even, or excuse me, I think if they're perpendicular, they're locked. It's one of those two. But if they're parallel, the whole thing will just come right out. Pathetic. And I got it stuck, so at least one of these is wrong. One way they'll pop out, the other way they won't. I hate these things. And so do a lot of other people. Maybe I got, no, maybe I got it the other way. Is it that if they're perpendicular, they'll come out? But they feel like they're tighter. Maybe it's righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, or maybe I dinged one of the crap-ass plastic bits taking this thing out. These things suck. Oh yeah, it'd be nice if you could see what I'm doing. These things suck. Yeah, well that side's locked down now, so basically we gotta turn these things in order to get them to pop up and loosen up, but I think I might have pushed some of them a little too hard last go around. Yep, we almost got it. Well, we can lift it up anyways, but I think there might be some plastic bits that I bent on one side last go around. Ooh, just like that. Yeah, see? Plastic crap on the bottom. And now we see where the heat problems came from, because unplug the fan while we're at it. Now we can see where the heat problems came from with the grain of rice method. Now, newer processors have way smaller dies than what this thing had. So, if we could take... You gigantic out-of-focus finger, baby! If we could take that off and look underneath, we would see the central chip kind of rectangular in the middle, and that's why Arctic Silver recommends a line down the middle. Today's processors are so freaking small that you can just put a dab in the middle, and of course you get the Austin Evanses of the world.
Hey guys, this is Austin. Less is more with your thermal compound.
Oh wait, no, that was Linus Tech Tips, so...
Yes, it always helps to not push the power button on the camera when you're recording.
Oh, this thing is so awkward. I haven't tried to film with a point and shoot in a very long time. This is bigger than the last one. Whatever. Anyways, about that Linus Tech Tips impression.
I think he's somewhere up here, but I really don't want to sound any more congested than I already am. Not to a baby.
Okay, that's horrible. Before all these fanboys come and tar and feather me for that in the comments section, how about we fiddle around with this, because, yeah, that basically meant there were parts of the die that had zero thermal paste whatsoever. Now, I don't want to be wasting perfectly good Arctic Silver on something like this, so what I want to do, I have a syringe of the Cooler Master crap. Actually, I might have two of them now somewhere. There's a second one around here somewhere. But I got the syringe of the Cooler Master crap that came with the third-party cooling that I didn't use, because, yay, Arctic Silver! So, I actually am thinking of maybe using this stuff up rather than keeping it as a backup. Or maybe for consistency's sake, because I do have an extra syringe of Arctic Silver left over from the last time that I installed a custom processor, and I can't tell which one's older now. You know what? This one's unopened, so we'll save that for an emergency and just use up the rest of this stuff. I just don't want it to get like, you know, when you're squeezing the last thing of ketchup out of the bottom of a ketchup bottle, and yes. And of course, we can see what happened with the bottom of the stock cooler as well. So it was a little off center. And lovely stuff like that, but older processor calls for some retro ways of applying thermal paste. So I went to take off the thermal paste from the stock cooler. I ran into a rather interesting observation. It rings like a bell. These pathetic Intel stock coolers are the cowbells of CPU coolers. Too much free time. There we go. Nothing like a nice long hour or two break to have some supper and do some other things to get your head together on this sort of mess. So I went over the stuff for the Arctic Silver one last time and made one very important observation, which is why I flipped open the CPU door here. The instructions for doing the vertical line method are based on this right here, the little arrow being in the lower left. So I was about to, if I didn't look this up, which is how I screwed it up last time, I was about to, this thing will focus, right? I was about to go vertically that way, but actually it should be a horizontal line with the Arctic Silver in order for this to work correctly. So let's reclose the door here, and let's apply that stuff, and we'll probably get better temperatures now that we're putting this on correctly and not just putting a dot in the middle like today's processors. But again, at the end of the day, which it is pretty much the end of the day right now, what we have going on here, we're putting too much effort into a system that completely doesn't deserve it. Not only is this an old Core 2 from the late 2000s, technically mid-2000s if you want to count 2007, it's actually because I have to keep reseating the RAM because that crappy Kingston RAM I got to put it up to 4 gigs keeps freezing the motherboard during the post. At least I assume it's the RAM. Could be the motherboard. The motherboard could just suck that badly. Okay, let's apply our thermal grease now. Why'd I ever do this? Oh, yeah, YouTube video, tinkering stuff. And it's a learning experience, too. Whatever. That's better. The fun part about the line method is that you can double back for the excess coming out of the syringe. So, let's put this thing back on now. Done! Unfortunately, I fumbled the cap on the syringe. It went flying into the parts bin, so I don't know where it landed. But to not lose that, I decided to sacrifice the Cooler Master stuff. So let's see what this stuff would have looked like. Oh, it's metallic silver, just like Arctic Silver is. Interesting. Well, it's not like thermal compound is the most expensive thing out there. So if I have a syringe of Cooler Master compound dry up, then no big deal. Right then, everything's back in with its board-bending lunacy. That is the design of this thing. So, now let's fire this thing up. See what kind of better results we get. Stock cooler got us down to 50 degrees, but now we're rocking Arctic Silver. Tossing our pearls before swine, indeed. Much, much better temps. No 70s to be found here. These things are capping out at 49 now, whereas before, they're capping out at 52. Now, Arctic Silver does say that it'll take about 100 hours or so for the material to cure, so I could always burn this in for a couple of days or something like that, but why leave a computer running if I'm not actually using it? We know this thing used to cap out in the about like 52 or so. Now it's only hitting 49 when we first start the computer up, and the power supply, the power save stuff on the motherboard is kicking in to bring down the processor temperature from when it wasn't in Windows yet. However, I still think we need to run Unigine Valley, remembering what we ran into earlier. Interesting, it's in the 30s, and I don't have any windows open. I probably could do much better to get some airflow in here from the cool evening air. It's still 85 in here. So, 85 Fahrenheit, that is. So what we're seeing, but I want to keep the conditions the same. So let's crank our Unigine Valley here, see what we get up to. I have to Alt-Tab back to it, and go. Whoops. Core 1013, come on, dual core, you can do it. There we go. And it's choking already. Alright. 50 frames a second. That's looking like it's... The interesting part is, it's just looking good. About 40-something frames a second. I think it's running on low mode though, right? Now it's on custom mode anyways. But the big thing is what's happening to the processor. It's capping out at 50. So with no curing on the stuff whatsoever, this thing has well, still can't handle its own video signal. Come on. This graphics card sucks. There it goes. Now, before the graphics card craps out again, it's interesting though, we're close to 100% load, but not as much as before. But still, yeah, 50, okay, now we're up to 53 and stuff like that. We're starting here though. Question is, what's going to happen when this stuff cures? Because this is a fresh application of this stuff. The fun part is, except for the graphics card conking out every other scene, 30s, 40s, sometimes 20s and 10s, but there's a little bit of stutter on this. So, let's kill this thing. This computer is a mad science experiment at this point. And I don't think I'm going to be keeping the Windows license. So, here's the story with the Windows license. Let's close all this down. Let's hide the desktop icons. And let's look at the really nice, let's look at the Windows 7 wallpaper, the default wallpaper anyways, and talk about what the situation is with this computer. So this Windows 7 OEM professional version that I have, I picked up originally for Tuxedo back when it ran Windows 7. You know what? Heck with it. I picked that up back when Tuxedo was running it. And of course I upgraded to Windows 10. Now, the licensing is that your Windows 10 license is a continuation of your old license. So technically, this OS should not stay on this computer. If the chair would stop creaking. I think it's a little pseudo whoopee cushion type noises. Let's turn the fans down. I don't need all the noise anymore. So, anyways, when we're done torturing this, we are going to nuke the Windows installation. Could still try XP. Could go back to Linux. Could even do React OS. Never got that working. And I've got Android games that I can't play right now because the tablet conked out last year when the USB jack gave out on me. So, no way to charge it. It was all over for that piece of junk tablet. The price on it has actually gone up. Terrible for a dual-core Asus tablet. So, but yeah, this whole situation is, well, it's been weird, but I'm not keeping things this way. It's also, I just found out today that the OEM licenses for Windows 7 had a little clause in there that you weren't supposed to use them on systems you were building for yourself. So just weird licensing and things like that. I definitely say that the Windows 10 licensing setup is a heck of a lot better than what was in existence for 7. And I look forward to 7 going into the history books as well, because even 7's getting long in the tooth these days. But it's the next Windows XP. People are going to be, back the chair up, people are going to be in denial of how old the OS is until someone tells them. I do like the lighting effect, though, of the warm lighting on one side and the TV screen doing blue on the other. It makes for a nice effect. Maybe a good thumbnail. Matter of fact, yeah, I'm going to put this in stills mode and take a thumbnail of it for the thumbnail. It looks pretty cool. So yeah, thus ends the mad science nonsense with this thing. It doesn't run as well as it used to. And quite frankly, I still have my curiosities about Linux. So if anything, let's torture this machine with a Linux installation, or something along those lines. Till next time, this is MultimediaJay, signing off. Thanks for stopping by.